Here, so RoAM, recorders of the Somerset marshes, Somerset levels. I mean, the name doesn't really apply anymore because our area is a bit wider than that. So what I'm going to talk about today are the landscape designations, and then we've got this alphabetic spaghetti of names. So SSSI, Site of Special Scientific Interest, Special Protection Area, that was a European designation. It's the highest designation, landscape designation you can get. National Nature Reserve, and I'll talk a little bit about a new super national nature reserve, which is wonderful. Local Nature Reserve, Ramsar site. Anyone know what a Ramsar site is? Yeah, let Simon have a go.
Well, having produced quite a few HRAs on Ramsar sites and SPAs, the European sites are wetlands associated for aquatic invertebrates and birds primarily.
Yeah. So Ramsar is not an acronym, it's actually a place in Iran, I think, isn't it? And the Ramsar Convention was signed in the 70s. So again, it's a top level site, and you get Ramsar sites all around the world, not only in Europe. So the SPA, Special Protection Area, and its relative, the Special Area Conservation, SAC, are European designations. The Ramsar site is a national designation. There's probably lots others as well. You mentioned HRA. What's an HRA?
Habitat Regulations Assessments.
So every time somebody wants to develop something, it has to go through a process called an assessment, an HRA. Used to be my job, terrible stuff. Okay, so the area we cover is the Somerset Levels. Or we could call it Sedgemoor, or we could now call it the Somerset Wetlands. All those names are valid, sort of thing. It used to be the Somerset Levels of Moors, that's what we called it in the 80s, 90s, 2000s. We're now moving, I think, more away to using the term Somerset Wetlands. Fantastic wetland areas, you can see here all these major rivers, 5 or more rivers flowing through the area. The one thing you will know is all those rivers are heavily modified by people, and they have been done so since the Roman period. So you can see they're quite straight, some of them are totally artificial. The King's Sedgemoor Drain, for example, not mentioned on there, but my thing's not showing, but this, the one in the centre just above Bridgewater, that's the King's Sedgemoor Drain. That was dug in the 1800s to drain this great swamp, because the last thing we all want is lots of wildlife and that sort of thing. So there's been lots of efforts to drain this area. And I must say that's been very successful in some ways, in that we've gone away from a totally natural system full of wildlife to a highly modified system. Now we have, as I said, we've got this new designation, which is called a Super National Nature Reserve, and all the sites highlighted in green here. I'm afraid this doesn't work, but the one at the bottom is West Sedgemoor, which is owned by the RSPB, owned and managed by the RSPB. Then above that is South Lake Moor, which about 75–80% of that is owned and managed by Natural England. Then above that we've got King Sedgemoor and Moorlinch, and those are sites mostly owned and managed by Natural England. Then we pop over the hill into this area, into the Avalon marshes. Now that is a new name, that's a term that hasn't been in place very long, but it has, since this place has been called the Avalon Marshes Centre, the name is more relevant now. And that covers all the way from Glastonbury, really. It could cover all the way, through Catcott, Eddington, Chiltern, out to the sea. And then above that we've got the West Hay Complex and Teelham and Tatham. So we've got a string of sites, some of which are in the Super National Nature Reserve. Then we do the coast, although, like I said, we don't do marine. Well, we don't do marine, but we certainly would do the coast. So we've got the huge area of Bridgewater Bay, and now we've got Sturt Marshes. Sturt Marshes, I think I'm right in saying, is probably our newest, shiniest reserve that's been created in the last 10 years or more. So when was the Super National Nature Reserve
21.
declared? Sorry?
21?
2020.
Not that long ago.
Yeah. So that brings together a number of sites that were existing National Nature Reserves, such as Shatwick Heath, West Hay Moor. So Shatwick Heath is managed, as you know, by Natural England. West Hay Moor is managed by Somerset Wildlife Trust. So this brings that together, and I guess there's going to be expansions in that in the future, because Natural England bought some land at Northmoor a couple of years ago, which is probably not on there as
It is not, no, that's a very touchy subject.
No, sorry, I won't mention that again. Okay, but so the basis of protection of all those sites is the site of special scientific interest. Okay, that's your basic protection. The very best way of protecting a site is to buy it and manage it. Okay, that's very clear. There's lots of evidence to prove that, you know, if a conservation organisation buys and manages a site, then it's much more likely to be richer in wildlife. But the basic is, of course, the site of special scientific interest. So there's some in the north here, so there's Catcott, Eddingham and Chiltern. West Hay Heath, anyone been to West Hay Heath?
Yeah.
Yeah, a few of you, yeah. That's one of these sites that I think is open to the public.
No.
No?
We just went because we encountered the big tits there.
Okay, I know that's it's a difficult site to access,
Yeah.
there's no park.
No, that's one.
And then we go further south. So there's lots of SSSIs on here that are not actually part of, not wetland sites, such as Five-Head Arable Field, which is a super site. It's got lots of really rare arable plants. So that's right down.
Where's that, sorry?
That's down here.
Oh, Five-Head, yes.
Five-Head Arable Field. Yeah. This should show the light, but my battery's gone. Well, not my battery. Okay, so the notification of some of those SSSIs, it started in the 1980s under the 1981 Wildlife and Countryside Act, and didn't go really well at first, I should say. These people here are they're not real people, they're being hung and burnt actually by the farmers on West Sedgemoor, because they objected very, very strongly to the site's notification. So SSSIs, as I say, there's a 1981 Act, but there was a precursor to that in 1949, the Wildlife and Countryside Act in 1949. But things really started to change and improve protection in the 1981 Act. It isn't perfect, I'll be the first to admit that. So the farmers objected. They burnt members of the Nature Conservancy Council, RSPB, and a few other people. There was a huge public meeting in Boroughbridge where a minister came down. And it's always been one of those sites that's quite touching, isn't it? Did I hear it still is? So one of the things, sorry.
Could I just add something to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Prior to that happening, the farmers went and ploughed up a load of West Sedgemoor and planted roots and all sorts of stuff out there.
Yeah.
But what they found after planting it, it grew very, very well. And I mean, the carrots were tremendous because I went and pulled a few up and tried them, so they were very good. But the ground sunk, and that's one of the problems you get when you plough out the ground gradually sinks. And there's an area out there now which is all covered in rush, which they can't do nothing with.
Yeah.
And if you go to the barn and look out, you can see that particular area where they tried growing crops.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the barn out there was made specifically for the crops to come into.
Yeah. So I've got a map. I used to have a map when I worked for Natural England, which was called the potato map, And that showed us very nicely where potatoes were planted on West Sedgemoor, and as you've just explained so well, the ploughing and the draining of the peat causes it to shrink. So they've got areas now that are very low lying. So in the wintertime, they're just full of ducks. So that's kind of a good thing, but you lost a lot of very interesting vegetation. Anyway, so things have moved on. This was 1982, 1983. Things have moved on, and relationships with landowners are much better now than they used to be. So the SSIs, what did they protect? Well, they looked at things like the river, the ditches. Ditches on the Somerset levels are very important. So the plants and the invertebrates associated with those ditches are one of the major features, such as dragonflies. You know, lots of sites are actually notified for their dragonfly assemblage. And then the birds. So the birds are protected as features of the SSSI, but they're also protected under this special protection area. Okay, in the winter time, and my figures are a bit out of date now, but we would roughly get about 100,000 birds coming to Somerset to overwinter. Now some of those birds are doing really well, so ducks are doing quite well, lapwing are doing quite well. One of the features was Buick swan, but we used to have about 100 or 200 of them come to this part of the world. That's changed now. They don't come this far west anymore. So things change, and I think the numbers of ducks are actually changing as well. So things do change with time. This is taken actually at Grey Lake Allotments, as it used to be called, which is an RSPB site. Magically, I don't know how the RSPB do this. They dig a little hole somewhere and put a hide up, and then get zillions of birds. So it's a really good site. It's one of the few sites, I think, where you can actually go and walk to a nice hide along nicely made up paths and things, and the birds are there. So there's very few other places. Hamwall is similar, of course, but that's a series of lakes. The other feature of the area, of these designations, are the breeding waders. There's 4 breeding waders: redshank, curlew, snipe and lapwing are the 4 species of breeding wader that are particularly important. So anyone know what these are? Lapwing, yeah. So lapwing eggs on Northmoor. These are on Northmoor. They don't breed there anymore.
Nothing breeds there anymore.
No. And these came within 1 inch of the Natural England manager's foot. She was walking along and just about to tread on them. And I said, stop. So there are a series of sites, and a lot of work was done, and I guess it still is being done, on making some sites really, really, really good for breeding waders. I don't know if I've included, no, I haven't included the data, but there used to be about 500 pairs of breeding waders, those 4 species. Then there was a massive decline from the 70s through the 80s, and there was a lot of interventions, some of which didn't work, most of which didn't work. So raised water level areas were put in, and that was really aimed at breeding waders. So some sites are doing very well. My data is out of, my knowledge is out of date now. But places like West Sedgemoor, just crammed with breeding waders at one stage. King Sedgemoor in the middle there, number 7, that's an important site. Over here in the Avalon Marshes or the Brew Valley, things like Catcot, Eddington and Chiltern, they're quite good. So Somerset Wildlife Trust Reserve at Catcot Lows is good for lapwing, for example. So that's been an ongoing struggle now for 30, 40 years. There's some new sites coming in and been developed. So this is the Sturt Marshes, which came in, was sort of put together, built 10 years ago, I guess. Yeah, that sort of period of time. Really nice site, really good for families and people to walk around. The old wildfowl that used to wildfowl on the site moaned because he said, "Oh, there are lots of people walking around my site now, people dressed in lycra and bicycles." Anyway, he went on a bit, as he did. So this is a really nice site. Now that, as far as I know, is not designated yet, okay? So it's gone through a lot of engineering works, and it's now super for birds, but it's not a part of the SPA as yet. I guess in time it will be, and then, but that's owned. It's owned by, got to get this right, it's owned by the Environment Agency and managed by the Wildfowl and Wetlands Trust. So quite a few partners involved in all these sites. And they've dug a series of ponds and the like, which is excellent for wildlife. Now, a site you've probably not heard of. Who's heard of Sharper Moor Plot? Hmm? Dion, you've heard of Sharper Moor Plot?
Yeah.
You've been there?
No.
No? It's stunningly exciting. Okay. So this is one of the earliest reserves in the Somerset Wetlands. There was detailed surveys carried out in 1915 by a chap called Stuart Thompson, who was a botanist, and he came across a hybrid sedge. That doesn't sound very exciting, I know, but hybrid sedge, Carex timesii voluta. It was the only place in Britain where it occurred. And it was purchased, so the site was purchased. There it is, that's the original map, and the little yellow bit is where it is, so it's a very tiny little reserve. It's currently managed by Somerset Wildlife Trust. It's owned at the moment, Somerset Wildlife Trust. All around it now, of course, in where the kink goes, that's hand wall, most of that. But this is the earliest reserve. It is also a site of special scientific interest. It's adjacent to Street Heath. Anyone been to Street Heath? Yeah. Yeah. So Street Heath is another tiny site. That's a local nature reserve, and that's managed by Street Parish Council. Okay. But, so from small, very, very small beginnings, we've now got a huge area that's protected. It's an important site historically, because this chap, Tansley, Professor Tansley, did a lot of the early research there on plant communities and basically invented the science of ecology. It was bought initially by someone called the Society for the Promotion of Nature Reserves. Have you heard of that? That was in the 1950s, okay? So a lot of these sites were bought up, but it's subsequently been passed over now to the Somerset Wildlife Trust. So Society for the Promotion of Nature Reserves was a precursor, really, in many ways, to some of the wildlife trusts. And, as I say, really important for things like the study of ecology and developing that. There is a site, you can just about get to it now. It's surrounded by water. All of the peat around it has now been taken out. It's a small wet woodland. A site you will have heard of, I'm sure, is Westhay Moor. So that's an SSSI, Site of Special Scientific Interest. It's a National Nature Reserve. It's now part of the Super National Nature Reserve. It's a Ramsar site. It's a special protection area. It's got all the bells and whistles, and it's got pretty good visitor access as well. So I think this map is now out of date because but things have changed and they bought more land. So the people started to realise that cutting the peat was really bad for wildlife, pretty obvious. And so the early members of the Wildlife Trust managed to buy parts of the site, such as the mire, to protect it from cutting. That's why the mire is in the lake now, that they stopped cutting of the peat on it. And over years, and these things do take years, the Wildlife Trust have purchased more and more bits. So 2 or 3 years ago, they purchased one of the ex-peat working sites, and they restored that. And more in a moment about the mire that they've been looking at. Westhay Moor looks like. One thing I should mention, of course, is they've now got charges for parking. Okay, so if you become a regular member of RoAM, and you're out there helping us record, then if we talk nicely to the Wildlife Trust, possibly we can get you free parking. Okay, so there's a benefit of that. So this is an ex-peat void. It fills up with water. There's the fantastic mire there as well. I say fantastic, actually. Our mires are degraded. Okay, they've been degraded by peat cutting around them and drainage and all those sort of things. A lot of work has gone into trying to restore them or manage them or whatever. So there have been projects running on for decades now, trying to stop these mires changing. And last year, lots of money. This year, lots of money's been injected to try and protect those sites. And I'll show you another site there. Now, part of RoAM's job there is to record not only the birds, but all not the birds, but all the other things such as the fungi assemblage there. Its neighbour, of course, is Westerly Heath, which is almost opposite Honeygar Farm. Okay, so there's another site there. That was one of the earliest sites restored from the peat. Okay, a chap called Kif Hancock, if you've heard of Kif. Kif worked for the Wildlife Trust, and he did a lot of the early work in trying to restore that site. And it's quite an interesting site now. It's not pure reed bed. So reed bed is a bit of a monoculture. It's more of a fen, so it's got some exciting species that grow there. But as we said earlier, it's quite a difficult site to get to. There's the drove that goes through the centre. Now, site you must know, Shatwick Heath. Now this is the second oldest nature reserve, I guess. 1961, there were agreements with Fisons. Fisons was one of the earlier peat cutting companies. Fisons Peat. There was an agreement between, I guess it was the Nature Conservancy Council, the NCC, which is a precursor of Natural England, English Nature. So that covered 1 acre, that initial agreement. It was notified under the 1949 Act in 1967, sorry about all the dates, and has expanded year on year. I mean, not every year is a bit full, but eventually it came into ownership of the now Natural England and was notified as under the Wildlife and Countryside Act. In the 90s, they purchased Canada Farm for a Heritage Lottery grant. So that's why we got a fantastic organic farm, fields full of wonderful plants and stunning insects. So that was purchased from the big landowner at the time, which was the Vesti estate. And of course, in Shatwick Heath, since 1994, there's been no more peat cutting. Okay, but records go back earlier, so there's a chap called Harry Godwin, who came down here, and he was the first person. So we use the word Shatwick Heath, but it's not a heath at all. Never has been a heath. It might have been a wet heath. But he realised, he and fellow workers realised that actually what we're standing in now was once a very large lowland bog. Okay, so they're quite rare. As you can see, our bog has been heavily modified by lots of that. So there's Godwin, Harry Godwin. He was a Yorkshireman, and he was a professor at Clare College. This map here is, I don't know why I keep doing that. This map here, or these maps here, are some of the earliest vegetation maps that we have. They were created by others, but and if you know the sites today, you can vaguely work out where things are. Of course, there has been a very long history of peat cutting in this area. Initially, well, peat cutting probably goes back pre-Roman times, but there's definite Roman cutting of the area. Up until the 1950s, peat cutting was done for domestic fuel, and then with the development of movable pumps and JCBs, people were then able to remove peat much, much faster than the bog could grow, and that was removed for horticultural purposes. There was even a railway line across Shatwick, and these are all the workers there, so the peat was put on the mini railway line and then shipped away. So that was that. That's West Hay. That's Mere Heath. Okay, I think that's Mere Heath. I'm not 100% sure. I think that's Mere Heath. Just as English nature, all those three bodies, they're just the same thing. I can never remember exactly who was what at the time. So you can see there, they didn't take all the peat, which was quite good. There's the start of the restoration projects on there. Anyone remember Melvin Yendall? You remember Mount Eaves Road? Yeah. So Mal Yendall and Robin, who was the warden at the time, did an enormous amount of job and work in restoring places like Shatwick Heath to what they are now. And that's a modern map, well, slightly out of date now, it's 2010. That's a modern map of the area. So we've gone from the Hope Simpson map, which is the one I showed earlier, to what we've got today. And it shows that the area, as we probably all know, is quite a complex of different vegetation communities, of which the little remaining mire is just one element of that. So a lot of it is open water. If you think of Mere Heath on the sort of the northern bank, that's an open water complex, and then you've got places like Canada Lake on the opposite side, and 70 acres. There's an aerial photograph, courtesy of Natural England, okay, looking over the site.
Where are we in relation to that?
We are this is the edge of Ham. That's sorry, my pointer doesn't work, but yeah. So that's looking west. Yeah. And one of the things I said I'd talk a little bit about, although I know very little about, is actually the modern technology we can use to monitor these sites. So they've got, I think, 2 volunteers, isn't it, that do the drone flights?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do really amazing work. So, sorry, I've forgotten this guy's name.
Rob.
Yeah. So here's one way of monitoring great white egret. Okay, you can see the nests of the great white egrets. You can look down, see how many chicks they've got. Sort of thing. Unbelievable technology. When I worked here, you know, we had to walk through the swamp and get very wet and bitten. So great white egret. So one change is that great white egret turned up here one year, and this was the first breeding site in the UK for this magnificent bird. Incredibly rare. We watched the nest for 24 hours, 48, 7 days a week sort of thing, because we thought someone might try to steal the eggs. They never did. So fantastic bird. They're now common as muck. They're everywhere now. And bitterns. A lot of the funding came in to conserve the sites or to make the sites better for the bittern. This bird had gone extinct in Somerset. I can't remember when, but in the 50s maybe.
1850s,
No, I think it survived a bit longer than that.
Well, I mean, they were shot for, in any case, that's what finished them off really. They were hunting, used for the table.
Yeah, it generally doesn't work to conserve a bird by shooting them. It's not very good. Bittern numbers, once they'd established in the Avalon marshes, just grew and grew and grew, so their numbers were fantastic. And I know a number of you do bittern monitoring. You go listen for the booming animal, don't you? Which is the way that So a great success story, a conservation success story. The large lakes that were created by the peat cutting at Shatwick are very rich. They're quite shallow. They're 2 metres in depth. Very rich. They've got a wide range of plants and insects associated with them. This is a botanical survey that was carried out a few years ago. This is actually Catcot Lows here, and a few of us can probably remember when Catcot Lows was a carrot field. Yeah. So the trust got hold of it in the early 1990s. So there have been conservation successes. We got some nice wet woodland on Shatwick as well, which is changing slowly. So some of those trees are dying and creating lots of lovely dead wood and the like. And we used to have 3 species of woodpecker here, but no longer. The lesser one has gone, unless you're going to tell me otherwise.
No, it's been seen. I saw one about 3 years ago, decoy.
We have a few records at Chocolate Moor.
What, lesser spotted?
Yeah. And the feeders outside the Avalon house.
Yeah. Yeah.
Recent. 6-7 years ago. Just one big Easter.
Yeah. So the Myers are good. They've got a plant assemblage such as this Drosera rotundifolia here, the sundew plant, and that's doing okay.
It was so dry last year. You know, I was surprised they survived because the
Yeah.
weather almost dried up on Wednesday. You know.
Yes, yeah, they did. Yeah. Well, Pimpernel, which is an amazing, probably that is one of our prettiest plants, isn't it? Bob Asphodel, a few sites for that, but it's declined. Street Heath, which I mentioned earlier, used to have all these species, but Street Heath has changed quite a lot, sadly. And of course, a 2-star orchids, people love orchids. Okay. We got the lesser butterfly orchid and frog orchid, both of which can be found at locations on Shatwick.
Which one's which?
The white one.
The white one is the butterfly, and the further one
The
is
lesser butterfly, you said.
yeah, I think that's a lesser
It's
butterfly.
the greater butterfly from Ivy Thorn Hill.
Yes, which
That's
is
quite rare then.
that's yes. There are 4 or 5 locations in Somerset for it, of which this is the most important. There are 2 locations for frog orchid in Somerset, and somewhere on Shatwick Heath is one of those. There's about 50 plants. So those are stars, and so that's why we conserve the habitat and conserve the species. Moving a little bit further away from Shatwick, we've got places like South Lake Moor, which is a natural inland reserve with Burramump in the background there. And that's home to one of our rarest plants, the greater water parsnip, Siam latifolium. And that was part of a project to reintroduce it into parts of the Avalon marshes. Simon, were you associated with that? Did you do that? Greater water parsnip?
Towards the end of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got Bristol Zoo to grow some on, and they were planted out. A bit of a failure in some senses. So we need to recognise where we failed. It's quite sad. So I had a box of 200 of these baby plants. Remember Simon Clark?
Yeah.
Yeah, he dug a hole in one of the locations, right? Someone else set fire to the reserve. That was not good for them as well. The deer and the cattle love them, but we planted them out. They're still clinging on catcot. So South Lake Moor, conservation success, a lovely little enclosed moor, 198 hectares in size, and in the last 20 years, it's the process of warping the moor, of deliberately flooding the moor, has been reinstated, which is a conservation success. But it's one of the sites with really stunning ditches from a plant point of view and from an invertebrate point of view. And as I say, it's got this very rare plant in there. So that was the donor site, seeds taken from there, grown on by Bristol Zoo, planted out into the Avalon marshes. And it's got things like pond reeds and that's the fruit of the arrowhead. Okay, and a lot of our ditches across the area have got these water violets which flower quite early on, so in April, May time. Another conservation success story I should just quickly mention, of course, is the Great Crane Project, which reintroduced cranes back into the Somerset levels after a gap of hundreds of years. Eggs were collected from Germany, brought over to Britain, hatched out at Slimbridge, and then the RSPB released them at another site there. Swale Wood, an interesting woodland, but I suppose the main interest there, of course, is the heronry, where we've got herons breeding. So what I'm trying to build up here is a picture of conservation successes, some losses and things like that. This heronry has been recorded for a very long period of time, I think probably close on to 100 years.
Yeah.
It's only
they've
one.
got cattle egret.
Yes, so the cattle egret breeding there now. Yes.
They did about 3 years ago. There's quite a number of nests there. You also get little egrets nests in there as well.
Yeah.
Little egret, of course, now common, aren't they? Common.
Yeah.
Less so recently. The cattle egret, the little egret now in the marshes.
Right. There's so many egrets. Egrets, we have a few. West Sedgemoor is really important for a particular plant community, the fantastic community of the marsh marigold grassland. I think that contains a third of the national resource of that type of particular grassland. And it has tiny little plants. This is my favourite little plant, so I had to show this. This grows on the trackways of West Sedgemoor, also on King Sedgemoor and Northmoor, Westmoor, and places like that. And this is a little buttercup type plant. It's called Mebstail, Marsaurus mimus. And it just requires the tractors to go up and down the track. So that's painting a really optimistic picture of the wetlands. The big problem, which I'm not going to go into it, is the amount of nutrients that come into the system. That is a major issue. And so this is the Sowie River, which is a relief channel, but completely full of nutrients. And that's sadly, so all of the good work that conservation organisations have done has been defeated by nutrients entering the system. So all of the sites of special scientific interest are actually in unfavourable declining condition because of the nutrient situation. And it's not something that we can really solve easier. You can't go in and move. You can't go in and do some scrub cutting or drainage or whatever. It's a problem. It's a county-wide issue. So I was just going to previously mention a book called The Somerset Wetlands. Probably out of date now, but that does detail some of this history. So let's talk about RoAM, Recorders of the Avalon Marshes. Here we are at Loxton Wood, 2 years ago. Now, apologies from Bill and Fred and Mike, who are three of the leading entomologists. So, as I said, we've got really good botanists, but what we haven't got are a really strong community of entomologists. And that's part of the function of RoAM, is to build that up. So what do RoAM do? Well, we record the beetle, particularly the beetles of the ditches, the diving beetles, etc. So that's one of the targets. So Bill Irwin, who you probably all know, is very good at identifying these things. There are other beetles around as well. So this is a root mining beetle, and it lives on the roots, unsurprisingly, of the purple loosestrife. And it's a weevil, actually. That's the ugly grant side. That would be a target species for us. And there we are. That's John, you're here, and Sharon, you're here. So, doing dragonflies. And you're going to run a course, aren't you, John, on dragonflies?
I am, yeah.
Yeah, here, starting next
Next Saturday's the first one, yeah, that's
Yeah.
the initial introduction
Yeah.
of it. Then.
Yeah, so
And then further ones later on about for identification.
Yeah.
So, you know,
So
looking
that's
forward to
good.
doing
If you
those.
haven't signed up,
So
please do. Who signed up for that? Oh,
we're going into some quite
We're gonna need a bigger
in-depth
room.
detail as well. So it's just identifying females and all the female forms and various things like that. And wing phonation as well. So I'm not going to get too technical, but as technical as you want me to. Now, apparently I've been told to keep it simple on the first one. And then if anyone wants to ask me questions, by all means can do. You know. But a lot of people are interested in that, in those different aspects of things. And a lot of people do have difficulty with identifying the females and the different colour forms of females. You know, 'cause
A function of RoAM is to train new entomologists, in this case.
it is a female.
No. Oh, this is Nick. Nick, what are you doing here? You're chasing a rare snail, aren't you?
Could be the
Segmentina
Segmentina,
nitida.
yeah, the little shining ramshorn, which
Yeah.
is sort of, it was all over the place, but now it's just located in sort of Kent, Pevensey, and not documented very heavily, but over here as well at Catford. So we go out once a year, maybe end of Feb, beginning of March, advertise a group to go out and just check they're still there.
Yeah, to monitor their distribution. So not only do we survey, we monitor, which is, we know it's there and we want to see how well the population is doing. There was Dr. Pat Hill-Cottingham spent, in her later life she got a PhD in the study of this species. So that's one of the important species. It's about the size of a grain of rice, I would say. It's not very big, is it?
No, a bit bigger than that.
Yeah, big grain of rice.
It's got four.
Grain of rice that's been
Four
hydrated.
miles, great.
Three, 4 wheels.
That's up there.
But one of our rare species. So, a RoAM function that is to monitor that species. If we can find it in other places, that's brilliant. Whoop. Okay, so Fred's not here today. He's in Bristol with Bill, talking to the Sunset Moth Group. We do moth trapping, okay, which is great fun. So particularly coming along at the end and seeing what's in the trap. And Fred and Bill have been working on LED traps. So that's one of, he loves building things, that's one of his sort of homemade traps, and I think he's producing 40 of these. And the reason they're doing that is that they're not, we don't want to attract moths from the entire world, we just want to attract them locally. So new technology, fairly cheap to build, so we will be running a series of moth trapping events throughout the year, okay? And you can come along to setting them up. It's day or night if you want to, or you can come the following day to see what's been found. Oh, sorry, I missed one.
Missed it. There it is.
Okay, so the other group that is particular interest, again led by Fred Giles here, this is the Orthoptera, grasshoppers and crickets, and so Fred will be running a series of training events on that. He and Bill Irwin, were responsible for re-finding or reconfirming the presence of the large marsh grasshopper. I think there was an earlier, they went extinct in about the 1990s, 1994. And then 6 or 7 years ago, probably less, it was re-found all over Teelam, Tallymoors, on Shatwick and things. So these, we don't know whether it had always been there, or whether it had been someone put it there, we don't know, or whether it come in naturally, so whatever. Okay, so flies, we do also flies. So this is Mike's slide, Mike Fly's slide. So flies are horrible, so we don't need to talk about them. They spread disease, they're nasty things. But also flies are great. They're beautiful, they're fascinating, and can bring joy and inspiration. This is not my slide, this is Mike's. So Mike, here he is. He's away doing a course on flies somewhere in the north of England at the moment, but he comes along and he's going to do a one session with us to help you begin to understand fly identification. Flying. So a group that very few people in Somerset do flies, record flies, so an opportunity there to learn new skills. And here I asked him for some pictures of pretty flies. So this is the silver kernel, which was lost from Somerset, or wasn't recorded from Somerset, and refound on a RoAM meeting, actually by Julie Merritt. I think she found this. She captured this on a tin and more. So that's the silver kernel. We will be looking for that this year. I don't know what this says. Right, so Mike will happily get you started on flies, and if you want to do that, it's something that probably not a huge number of people do, but if you're an interest in it. We also collect other records, okay? So spiders, butterflies, whatever. You do bumblebees, yeah. So that's you've been doing that for a very long time, haven't you?
About 16 years, I think.
16 years, yeah. And during that time, we've lost one or two bumblebees.
Well, around here, I think it's been a number of species has been fairly static.
Right.
But the shrill carder bumblebee has disappeared from the area. We've had one record, but that was a male, so record just wasn't. But that's the only one that we had since about 2002.
Yeah. Which is really hard to understand because you've got some fantastic habitats. Probably you know, I've got a theory, Mike, gone?
Well, but the last proper survey was somewhere around 2000, and the lady who did it said it was really quite fascinating because they're actually a sort of meadow species, but she was finding them along the droves and along the edge of the peat beds and so on. So in really marginal areas, which is actually where most of the bumblebees occur these days, but they've just completely disappeared, this shrill carder.
Yeah.
But the numbers of all the others have mostly declined on the levels.
Mm. And that's not just on the levels, is it? That's nationally.
Yeah, nationally, yeah.
So we've got a lady called Jo Chesworth coming to give us a talk on bumblebees. I can't see when it is. An introduction to bumblebee ecology by Jo Chesworth
On the 14th.
meeting at Avalon Marshes Centre. That's here. 14th of March. So again, that's something to book up for. Okay. But we do all sorts of things. We do nests, but micro. A nest of small mammals. And you've been doing small mammal nests at Honeycomb, haven't you?
We've done out at Carcott Plot as well. Ashcott Plot.
Yeah, Ashcott Clark,
Yeah.
Chatwick, all those things. So actually, but just going back to Honeygar, they're everywhere, aren't they?
Yeah.
That's good.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
We didn't know. I don't think we knew that. We knew they were at Chatwick, and Shelley spent a lot of time, and I think you spent quite a lot of time
Yeah,
doing it at Chatwick. And
well, we first started this some years ago. I got up when Simon Clark was in charge here. We looked at the cotton grass field just along the road here, and I was gobsmacked with the number we found there. We've never done it since, unfortunately. But just then,
we now have a trained expert in front of you.
the centre ditch down through there was more nests than I would ever imagined. We found loads.
Right.
Yeah, we did as well.
Yeah.
Mostly around the margins.
Yeah,
I think
so by
they've
the
been
margins,
destroyed in
yeah,
the
yeah.
centres.
Yeah.
Near brambles and
Yeah.
anywhere that held grass up.
Yeah. So I've never seen a harvest mouse in the wild. I've seen them in zoos.
We released some.
Don't tell me about that. I've never seen them. So the best way, not the only way, one of the best ways is in, I guess it's early winter time, is it? To go
Yeah, you want to do it when the vegetation's all died back.
Yeah,
Really.
yeah. So my rubbish photograph here, that's the
Be
best.
careful when you're doing it though, because if the grass is greenish in colour, don't go poking it around because there could possibly be one inside.
Yeah.
So if they're dried out, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
The other thing is different sizes.
Mm.
If it's quite a large one, it's obviously one that's been used for breeding. One thing about harvest mice, they don't make a hole to go in. If there's a hole coming out, then that's been used. There's
Yeah.
nothing in there.
Yeah.
But if it's complete, then it's quite possible there's a hole in there. And what they do is when they come out, they just drop to the ground. Just
Right.
no
So
drop them.
when is it okay to start doing it at the end of the year?
December, January, February.
So start of December?
Yeah, yeah. When all the greenery's dried back.
Yeah. My experience, it has to be cold when you do this. But it's another group that we can do, and training, although you've just mentioned some things, it is relatively easy to do.
You must have been doing water well surveys.
Yeah, we,
Yes, yeah.
We did that as well in the cotton grass field. And we did find waterfall there. In there.
So late in the year, in September, October, November, going on, we then do a little bit of work on fungi. And this is an example of where we've done fungi on Rodney Stoke, which is a National Nature Reserve on Mendip sort of thing. So we do come off the floodplain occasionally. It wasn't great, we haven't proved much, but it's one of those groups. These are wax caps. And you have to go back year after year to find them, sort of thing. So yeah, here's fungi at West Hayden Moor here. And Bill's a pan recorder, isn't he? You take a photograph of anything.
But those,
Now-
you also get adders, sorry, not adders,
You do?
grass snakes.
Yeah.
There was a wonderful one that was cat caught a bit, which had loads of grass snakes in it.
Yeah. So when we started looking at the RoAM records, and I'll talk about the records in a moment, if I haven't bored you to death, we had one record for frog on the Avalon marshes. Now, my view is there is probably more than one frog on the Avalon marshes. And this is the importance of recording, okay? So we know where they are, right? So there's a frog, common frog, toad, I mean very few records of toads, that's an adder, and I think there's going to be an adder workshop, or two adder workshops here
Yeah.
in March, I want to say.
8th and 9th.
8th and 9th. Is that on the list? I don't think it's on the list because it's not a RoAM event. It's being run by the Reptiles and Amphibians group. Okay? But yeah, slow worms, that's a feature of catcot loaves. That photo was taken of catcot loaves. Slow worm, of course, is a legless lizard rather than a snake. So whoever that guy is there, he's recording for great crested newt, a protected species, and every time you want to do some work you've got to know where your protected species are. So great crested newt in this case.
You got a licence.
So he's bottle trapped in there. You can collect records from, you don't actually need to see the animal itself. You can just see signs of the animal, so in this case moles. Very common around here. Yeah. So wherever you go this time of year you can see moles and you can write down their location and we can build on that data set there. Sort of.
If you were looking at that, how would you record it? Because you don't know how many moles are making all those molecules.
That's one busy one in that case.
Yeah.
No, so you just record the presence of them, right? So we're not able to say there's 15 moles in the field. What we're able to say is that the mole is present, okay? And we'll plot these, I'll show you in a moment, we'll plot these on a map, on a 1 kilometre square map, sort of thing. But they're very common, right? And brown hare, I think, yeah. Brown hares, you know, if you see them on when you're travelling around, it's really good to know where they are. That was on that was on Northmore actually, that one. And here we are as a group, and Mary, you star in this one, I think that's you.
I've not got my nose in the ground, no.
No, that's Fred Rumsey, Dr. Fred Rumsey there, who's helping the group, so specialists brought in to help the group record a very tiny, small, green, creepy thing called Pallavicini alei, veil warts, and that's one of its few locations in Britain, is actually on West Hay Moor. And for those of you who can see, here's the map of where they are, sort of thing. So when the Wildlife Trust were starting to do their Maya restoration work, we flagged up these places, and hopefully they've avoided the place for that rare plant. Sort of thing. As I said, we don't do plants, but we're always willing to work with groups such as the Somerset Botany Group or Somerset Rare Plants Group to help RoAM record. And of course, good knowledge of plants is required for lots of groups as well. So this year we will be looking at the Maya restorations, trying to see what's there, what's come back, what's improved, what's changed, sort of thing. So these are the Maya restorations, I think, at Shatwick. We also do other things as well. So that's our weather station, yeah. And we're collecting the data. Is your weather station?
Yeah.
Oh, the weather station at Honeygar.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And how long has that been running now?
18 months.
18 months.
Yeah.
What are you recording there? I mean, it's obvious, but it's not obvious.
So it's temperature, humidity, pressure, rainfall, there's soil moisture, sunshine, and then there's what I missed. I think those are the main ones. And then there's various derived ones like
Wind speed?
wind speed, yes, obviously, wind direction, transpiration rates worked out from it. What I missed.
So
All
quite a
the
lot of
obvious
clever
things.
stuff that you can do.
Yeah, all that
Yeah.
data is recorded every 30 minutes,
Yeah.
and have over the last 18 months.
Yeah, good. Before this, our local weather station would have been where you go, something like that. Yeah.
So it's there if anybody wants it, if anybody uses
Yeah.
it.
And we can link, hopefully, clever people, not only, clever people can link weather conditions with emergence of butterflies or dragonflies or
Just start.
silver kernels or all those sorts of things I've talked about. The other little green box, and I know very little about this, is recording the sounds. The sounds of the marshes, again at Honeygar. We should be able to work out what's there by the sounds. And I think there's something like 1 million recordings or something.
1.2
1.2, yeah.
at the moment.
1.2 million.
1.2 and probably a couple hundred once I go out there this afternoon.
Right. So you download that from a card onto a system?
Yeah, so Jeff's counterpart in his business is very brainy. He's got obviously a artificial intelligence program. They take the cards, upload it, and as soon as it's uploaded to the system, they press a button and it extracts all those sounds and separates them out onto a spreadsheet. So you can see.
Amazing. So you can tell whether bitterns are flying over.
Yeah.
Did I hear that you picked up night heron as well?
There was one case, it hasn't been confirmed whether it was on site or not. It could have been flying over, or it could have been, we've been picking up different sounds of birds that are different parts of songs of other birds, and it's been recording it. So it's not kind of fine tuned as yet, but we have had some very interesting captures, like the Chetty's warbler, the time of day that they started being active is like 3 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, it's a bit odd. So getting some good correlations.
So new technology started using CERC, Somerset Environmental Records Centre, new online recording system, ORS, to capture all of those records. So a record is 4 things basically. It's what you see, where you are, when you are, and who you are. So what, where, when, and who. And those are going on the system as of now. As I said, we've got a couple of thousand records, 1,000 records on. and that's a screenshot from the other day. So Sharon, you've been out at, was that, can't see where it is, Honeygar. At Honeygar doing fungi sort of thing. So they're all going to go in the system. So any records, and you can record records in a notebook, you can record them on an iPad, you can, well, however you collect them. A photograph is a good record as well. So once you've got those, you can either get signed up in the system like Sharon has, and Sharon's our star here because she's the only one that's done this as yet. So you can then put them on there, and then we can map them. So that is some of the data from Shatwick Heath as of a couple of days ago. And that would be all the species, so that would be fungi, that would be flies, that will be beetles and whatever. So the plan, and I'm not quite sure we've got this far yet, is to actually share that then with the conservation organisations, so that when they're doing work, they know more or less what's in an area or what's important.
Are you taking a download from iNaturalist as well?
Yeah, so that's in the future. So the way that we're trying to do this at the moment is, if you're a beginner and unused to recording, then iNaturalist is the way to go. And once you've reached a certain level of confidence, then we'll sign you up onto this through SERC, so Somerset Environmental Record Centre. And then eventually all that iNaturalist data will be incorporated into the system. Okay. We've been recording for a long time, more than 10 years, as you say. But previous attempts have kind of failed a bit because it wasn't too well organised, was it?
Do you record audible sighting? Not necessarily photographic or visual sighting?
Yes.
You record if you hear something as well?
Yeah, so if you saw a Chetty's warbler,
Yeah, you'd be lucky. If you hear it,
yeah. So if you heard of Chetty's warbler, you can record Chetty's warbler if you're confident, or even like me, if you're an incompetent birder, you can record that sort of thing. Yep.
How would I know where I am in terms of
How will you
recording?
know where you are?
And if you use what 3 words? Because I don't think OS on that.
What 3 words? I don't know, to be honest. A grid reference, ordnance survey grid reference.
If you've got things on your phone.
yeah, you get that up front. So always good reference to 6, 8 or 10.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very simple. Most phones are big on the phone.
iNaturalist will automatically record your location.
That's it, yeah. Or you can use a map.
Yeah, but if you do that, you're really hard to do better than 6 things. And for this, you need 8.
I use, I tend to use something like, I use a system on the internet that knows exactly where you are, so you can actually zoom in on an aerial photograph and say, I was walking along that drove, and that's what I have to.
Yeah, grid reference fine.
So I'm not sure whether what 3 words is compatible as yet with the online recording system. Okay. So what 3 words, if you haven't heard of that, that gives you 3 random names that take you down to 3 metres square.
3 metres.
It's a good system. Yeah. I'm an old-fashioned naturalist and I use grid references. Okay, so pretty close to the end now, so thank you very much for listening. As I say, if you sign up with Mary, you can become a member of RoAM, no charge. We have got out already, and Mary, thank you for this, we've got our programme, okay, our winter programme. So the next thing is on the 17th of August, which is August. It's been a long day. 17th February, so John's going to do that. In March we've got a walk at Honeygar, which I'm leading, so if you don't know Honeygar, there's an introduction to that, so you can walk around and
Will you be doing any more over the honeydew? Because I
Yes.
can't make that one.
Yeah, we will be, yes, yeah. We have picked this year, I think it's 4 or 5 key locations where we want to focus it in on. So Northmoor, the new land bought by Natural England, that's probably one of the focus sites. But yes, we will be doing that. We'll be going to Swale Wood on a walk as well. It is good. John, you've got some things, other things in your programme. Fred is going to talk to us about butterfly transepts. And he was saying earlier he hasn't had much sign up for those, so if you're interested, well, probably he's got everyone doing it anyway because he's got hundreds of volunteers.
Yeah, we know.
Yes. And then, as I say,
Whereabouts are all these talks? Are they all here in this room? Or
well,
in this?
yes, they are. Yes, so really luckily, or not luckily, thanks to Natural England, we get this room free. So again, that's working in partnership with them. So they're all here. You will get to this. You should have had this, but if you're not so far, there's a Facebook page, isn't there?
Yes.
Yeah. And is there an Instagram page?
There's also an Instagram, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you can put your photographs on the Instagram, can't you?
Generally, it's obviously just for obviously what I can upload at the moment. Because it's well, obviously Instagram is probably a personal kind of program.
Yeah.
So people can add it to your profile.
Right.
But if people upload and they tag RoAM in it, then I can share it to the page.
Right.
But the Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah. If you understood a word he said, then you would.
Your Facebook bits of information are really good.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I do enjoy making them, to be fair. And when you sent out the obviously winter programme, I got quite excited. So it means I got to make a lot of posters and stuff. So I enjoy doing that.
So there's today's post, isn't there? RoAM Talks. #1. Yeah. And we'll also do a little bit of outreach, as they would say, going to various events and things. And I think that's what Fred and Bill are doing today. They're going to the Bristol Moth Group and talking to them about that. Right, so that lasted 10 minutes longer than I thought, but are there any questions or any comments, or do you want to just throw tomatoes at me? Yeah, Megan.
So I wanted to bring up a couple of points about upcoming road closures between here and Shapwick Heath. So we've got one on the 21st of February with Openreach, that is 9:30 till 3. And also Monday 4th of March to Friday 15th of March, we are closing the road 9 till 4 to do some emergency tree work. So if you're coming this way, you're going to have to go the long way round or get here before 9 o'clock in the morning.
So, where are they there? Or there?
Down that way, basically. The Openreach one is going up that way and ours is going down that way. There is a website which I will send to you so you can send out to everybody, which has the road closures on it. You do have to check that regularly because they only have one on at a time.
I think the other road is also closed the day before the 20th of February, the one that goes down to Hamwell.
Yes, that is true, yes. There are a couple of road closures around Hamwell, but I don't know the exact dates of them, but yes, you're right, 20th is one of those.
So we could probably send that out to everyone.
Yes, yeah, send that to Mary. The other thing to mention is our bitten monitoring. So every year ourselves, Wildlife Trust and RSPB do 2 mornings of booming bitten surveys. This year it is the 14th of March and the 11th of April. I think all of us, if you're already on our list, will be sending out emails in the next couple of weeks. If you're not already on our list but you would like to monitor bittens, it's a very, very unhappily early start in the morning.
8 o'clock.
That's actually, yeah. If you're not already on one of our sort of survey lists, you can either email myself or contact me through Mary. That's probably the best way to do it. But this year we're also trying to get an idea of their wider population in Somerset outside the Avalon marshes. So this is something that Mark, the Wildlife Trust, is really leading in concert with CERC. We are setting up a sort of 4-month window of, supported by CERC and iNaturalist. We're going to have our own page on iNaturalist, And basically anytime, anywhere in Somerset, people can go out and if they hear a bit and they can record it, and then we'll get all those results later.
So,
That information will be coming out via Mark very shortly, so I could just put in the finishing touches to that profile.
Smart Blake.
Yes,
Yeah.
something that's very, going to be really exciting for us to see where they go, because we think that they are currently at capacity on the Avalon marshes. We've had about 45 or roughly thereabouts for the last, sort of 3-4 years. So we're thinking they must be going somewhere. Obviously there's, records of business popping up outside of Somerset, so they might all just be leaving, but we don't know for certain. So that's something that is in the pipeline. Keep your eyes peeled. Again, I will email Mary once all that's come out. We're going to put some posters up in the Hive, etc., that Mary will disseminate.
Will we still get breakfast?
Yes, I should mention that there is breakfast involved in the 2 morning surveys.
Yes.
It's on my mind.
Paid for, you don't have to pay for it yourself.
Mary, did you have a question? That was the question.
Are we not using iRecord anymore?
You can still use
Oh,
iRecord.
it's been more fashioned.
Yep, very old fashioned. Yeah. No, but if you wanted to sign up for the online recording system, you can do.
Yeah.
So all you do is apply to, you go online and to CERT, Somerset Environmental Record Centre, and get an account, which is incredibly easy. And then someone like myself, Bill, Fred, will actually say you're a member of RoAM, and then you get to you have a different level of input as well. Yeah, yeah. But this time,
This one works.
this was working. Yeah. We tried this before and it failed. But yeah. Nick, you want to?
Just wondering if there's how much support's in the room for a little bit more freshwater invert survey work. I've already mentioned the shining ramshorn. I'd probably go out before the end of March, so it would be slotted in between the sit down indoors in the dry talks. If I go via Mary, would that be all right? And then just send
Provided Mary's okay
consider
with his
it.
requests. He's flagging already. Yes, of course.
Yep.
Just for you.
That's great.
And Cartgate.
yes.
Cartgate, yes.
Yeah.
Tell us where Cartgate is.
Car is on the 303.
Yeah.
As you go from Ilchester towards Hodden, there's a big roundabout, but it's got a cafe and all that sort of thing. There's a lorry park. But on the side of that, there's a little nature reserve that we look after. These manuals here are what I've recorded on that site since 2019.
Right.
So it's a fantastic site. It's got loads and loads of stuff. I've just done a survey for brand new Hill Street butterflies, and I found I think it's 14 eggs on the site. We've got a biennial box fitted there. We've got several different bird boxes. We've got harvest mice there. We've got they're all in these. So John's been up to see the dragonflies. The dragonflies absolutely. We've got 21 different species there.
Wow. Yeah, it's
So
like a little micro.
it's another micro. It's absolutely a fantastic little site. I was just wondering whether we could get you gentlemen up to do a
Can we do a day?
day. Yeah, it's all like that.
Yeah. So we've got to do the summer programme.
Yes.
Okay, so this takes us through the winter,
Yeah.
but I think we would be delighted to come to Cartgate.
Thank you.
Okay, and you can book by the normal process.
So I think what we want to do it sometime probably July.
If you tell us when the best time is it?
Because
It's going to get the golden ring as well.
yeah, I want to show people the golden ring dragonfly, which you don't get down here, but we've got there.
Yeah.
Which is an absolutely beautiful dragonfly. So I'm going to do a survey, see if we find a larvae there this year. We'll just have a look, see what we find.
No, I think people would be delighted to go there, and we can do plant recording, beetles, all those sort of things. And flies. Yeah.
Dion, what's the access like?
Access, John.
Can I hobble up far?
You can. I can only get you in.
That's
Well,
right.
there you are. What will you get in?
Just parking the car park.
Yeah, it's quite good access to it from the main road.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. I think we've also got not a wind farm, a solar farm we're going to visit as well, to see what what life survives or thrives under a solar farm. So that's another one.
Where's that?
I don't know.
It's quite important.
Yeah, someone's invited Fred. That's Simon, you just say something.
Yeah, just a quick question. Just, I was interested in the process of obviously collecting the data to inform applied sort of management. So appreciate sort of, so we get these data sets and we hand it on to the different site managers across the site. Is there any sort of interaction two-way of sort of them informing you what the key priority action management plan objectives are, or where like key performance indicators that they're particularly interested for you?
You can tell he's a professional colleague. Well, I think that's a link that we haven't built fully yet. That's what I would say. We need to do more of that.
Yeah.
So understanding why we're doing it, why conservation bodies are doing things and where things are.
I'm very conscious that circa, or certainly they were 3 years ago, X amount of records behind in uploading. And as much as obviously everybody really likes going out to site and collecting data, obviously it's really good to have an end focus for it, particularly with the issues that we're encountering, obviously with climate change, nitrification, and the more evidence obviously you can build up, things like habitat regulations, assessments, phosphate uploads, I think it's really important.
Yeah, so RoAM can do a part of that.
Yeah.
Okay. We're not going to take on the job of the conservation organisations. But I guess we're building up sufficient expertise within the group to have a serious conversation with the site manager to say, well, you've got X, Y species on here. This is the kind of management they need. So, but it's a process that's we've got to formalise it.
Yeah.
But we won't have time to do, the whole stuff. We can only do our bit because we're volunteers and we do what we like doing.
Yeah.
We like dipping nets and catching butterflies and getting muddy. That's just you. Any other points, questions? You just ask the question.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say that I provide a report to the reserve managers that while doing bumblebee surveys.
Yeah.
Because the